Welcome to the Movie Spoiler Club, the channel where you can watch movie, television and streaming series within minutes. Today we're going to spoil the movie Face Off, 1997. This movie story plot is about, obsessed with bringing terrorist Castor Troy, Nicolas Cage, to justice. FBI agent Sean Archer, John Travolta, tracks down Troy, who has boarded a plane in Los Angeles. After the plane crashes and Troy is severely injured, possibly dead, Archer undergoes surgery to remove his face and replace it with Troy's. As Archer tries to use his disguise to elicit information about a bomb from Troy's brother, Alessandro Nivola, Troy awakes from a coma and forces the doctor who performed the surgery to give him Archer's face. The story unfolds with cheerful music. A father and his son are sharing a ride on the glittering horses while they glide up and down on their spinning platform. The music shifts hauntingly as the camera pans to a man in the distance dressed in black. With a keen eye, he locks the father in his sights through the scope of his gun with his finger on the trigger. He pauses briefly to take a sip from his soda nearby and the carousel spins on. The man's shot reopens and this time he is ready. He pulls the trigger and hits the father in the back. The father and son fall off the carousel onto the ground. The father crawls from his place to his son. There in front of him is his son's lifeless body. The music shifts again abruptly as the story flashes forward 6 years in time. The father is known as Sean Archer, who leads a covert operative team that is currently on the hunt for Castor Troy. Castor Troy leads a life of crime, but Sean knows him as the man who murdered his son. Currently, Castor is planting a bomb inside a building. He dances to the sounds of the choir singing Hallelujah. Moments later, Castor is on his way to board a private plane with his brother. They hop on and are greeted warmly by the in-flight stewardess. Castor is flirting with the stewardess, while the team of police is swarming the area. Once Castor realizes they have to run off, he throws the woman off of him and heads to the cockpit. A chase ensues. Castor escapes from the plane, but Sean Archer catches up to him. The two are face to face with guns pointed. Sean is ready to shoot Castor, but Castor says that Sean's bluffing. He knows that if Sean were to kill him, he would have nothing else to live for. Castor admits he is ready to die. Sean is about to pull his trigger, but then the plane's engine starts up. The engine's power blows Castor out into the metal fence, knocking him unconscious. That evening, Sean goes home to his wife and daughter. He finally gets to tell his wife it's over. His wife almost can't believe her ears. She looks at him in question and then they both hug. At last, she can have her husband back from the case that consumed his identity. The next day when Sean returns to work and the team is reviewing evidence from the case against Castor and Pollux Troy, they find a hard drive that suggests there is a bomb planted somewhere. The detectives take turns interrogating Pollux Troy for these answers, but he won't crack. Sean wants a turn, but his team insists they have a better idea. Pollux says he won't talk to anyone until he sees his brother. Sean follows his team to an institute where Castor Troy is being kept alive. Sean cannot believe they are keeping that scum of a person alive, but his partner insists that the only thing keeping him alive are the machines pumping oxygen into his lungs. They speak to a special surgeon, Dr. Walsh. They get an idea that if they can surgically remove Sean's face and replace it with Castor's face, they might be able to get all the information they need from Pollux. The surgery would be temporary, but it would mean closing the case for good. Instead, Sean decides to interrogate anyone who has ever been close to Castor, including Dietrich Hassler and his sister Sasha Hassler, both of which deny having seen or been in contact with Castor in some time. At the end of the day, he realizes that he will have to risk everything he has in order to close this case once and for all. He agrees to have the surgery. Sean tries to explain to his wife that the job will be over after this last assignment. He goes to paint her face with the palm of his hand, but this time she doesn't smile back at him. This time she shudders at his touch. She tells him to leave now, and so he does. He peeks in at his daughter asleep in her bed. He pulls the blanket over her and then he kisses her cheek. In the operating room, he tells the surgeon that he has a scar on his chest that he wants to be there when he comes back. Then he turns to his partner Tito and hands him his wedding ring. Now he is putting his life in the hands of the surgeon's knife. When Sean wakes up from the surgery, he peels the gauze away from his new face. He lifts himself up and turns to the full-length mirror in his room. His reflection stuns him. He looks exactly like Castor Troy. He smiles for a moment, and then he must brace his weight against the IV stand nearby. As the severity of the situation crashes on his mental stability, the team in his room tries to calm him. but Sean grabs the IV rack and strikes the mirror, shattering the glass on the floor. They shuffle him back to the bed, and the doctor gives him an injection to help mellow him out. Every part of Sean looks like Castor aside from his voice. Dr. Walsh fixes this problem by attaching a discrete microphone that augments his voice to mimic every sound wave of Castor's. Sean is being sent to Ruin Prison and will be hanging with prisoners for the next few weeks. At this prison, every inmate is put in magnetic boots that keep their feet on the floor. They move around freely only when the guards flip a switch. During lunch, Sean can feel all eyes on him in the cafeteria. He makes eye contact with Pollux. Sean makes his way over but gets stopped by his gang member. Sean tries to brush right past him, but he trash-talking on Sean. A fight breaks out. Pollux watches the fight inquisitively. Something is off. Sean is seething with rage in the hall. He has one guy on the floor with blood all over his face. Sean is shouting Castor Troy at the top of his lungs. Sean looks around to see inmates shouting and cheering. Then he looks down at the man he is beating. He is about to bash his head with a lunch tray to make Pollux believe in him. During the hesitation, the guards step in and break the fight up by locking the boots to the ground. Back at the Walsh Institute, Castor wakes up. When he realizes he doesn't have a face, he calls his gang for help on the telephone. Castor's buddy Lars rustles Dr. Walsh to the institute. Dr. Walsh is going to perform the same surgery on him so that he can be Sean Archer. In prison, Sean has to get in touch with Pollux. Pollux seems to put up a wall every time he is near. Sean tries to convince him that it's him, and Pollux eventually lets his guard down. Sean finds out exactly where the bomb is located. Sean breaks his character act in front of Pollux and walks away. Sean gets a visit later that day, and when the door opens up, he is surprised to see his face in front of him. Castor Troy has stolen his face, and now the two men are living very different lives. Castor has murdered everyone who knew Sean was acting as Castor for this experiment. So now no one will believe him, and he may never get to be himself again. Castor leaves the prison back to Sean's home and Sean's family. He drives right past his wife as she is heading out the door. He parks and greets her warmly, but she is clearly still upset with her husband. However, Castor managed to make her smile. When he walks inside and begins to make himself comfortable, he finds Eve's diary. Then he can hear Sean's daughter in her room. He opens the door to say hello, and she slams the door in his face. He opens the door again and grabs cigarettes sitting on her desk. She thinks she is in trouble, but her dad just pops one into his mouth. She gets suspicious because she didn't think her dad smoked. In prison, Pollux gets released on the word of Sean Archer imposter. Castor uses Pollux to make him a decorated detective. He convinces him that he is actually Castor in Sean Archer's body. When Pollux reveals where the bomb is, Castor goes and disarms the bomb, becoming the hero. Sean is still stuck in prison. He starts a fight with a guard trying to steal him a cigarette, and this gets him sent to electroshock punishment. Dubov, the other prisoner, is already there. When it's Sean's turn in the hot seat, he requests a guard to light up his cigarette, while the guards restrain his feet and head in the chair. Sean is trying to talk to Dubov on the floor. The guard is about to cuff his arm to the chair when Sean puts the cigarette out on his arm. Dubov comes back from the floor and beats the guard. Together they create riots inside the prison and make their escape. Sean climbs up to the roof trying to find his way out of options and not sure where to go. A helicopter appears and forces Sean to jump off the platform to evade the bullets. This chase continues until Sean jumps into the water below. He is presumed to be dead. When Sean Archer's team calls Castor to tell him that Castor Troy died, he knows that's too good to be true. Sean is alive and he calls his wife at work to warn her that the man she thinks is her husband is somebody else. Eve hangs up the phone in disbelief. Later that night, Sean decides to meet up with Castor's old pals Dietrich and Sasha Hassler. They are having a party with lots of drinks and plenty of drugs. When Sean tells them he wants their help to catch Sean Archer, they lean in closely to hear the plan. Sean tells them he wants to cut his face off and put it on his face. The party grows silent. Sean excuses himself and eventually passes out from the drugs. Back at Sean's house, Castor fights off his daughter's boyfriend who was getting too handsy on her. He gives Jamie a butterfly knife and explains how to use it the next time she finds herself in a dangerous situation. When Sean wakes from his nap, Sasha is in his room. The two talk and kiss. Sean learns that her son is actually Castor's son. When he meets the boy, he wraps him in his arms because he looks so much like his passed-away son. Sean senses a commotion and pulls them onto the floor as a smoke grenade crashes through the window. Castor is on the hunt for him. Sean puts headphones on Adam's head so he can't hear the noise. The boy can listen to the song Somewhere Over the Rainbow while guns fire in the distance. Sasha and Adam make it out safe. but Dietrich died that night. Sean and Castor are facing off for the first time as each other. They try to negotiate a switch but then decide it's better to just try to kill each other. This fight concludes where Sean swings down, pushing Pollux off of the roof. Sean mourns on the death of his brother. The next morning at work, Sean Archer made the front cover of Time magazine. Victor Lazaro, the police chief, is ending the case. Sean leaps from his chair, his mind racing. He turns to Victor and tells him he is Castor Troy, then delivers a paralyzing blow, knocking Victor to the floor and kill him off, tricking others that it's due to Victor's health condition. Sean is trying to get home. He creeps in through the backyard and makes it to his bedroom. His wife is in the shower. When she comes out, she is terrified by the man in front of her. He begs her not to look at him. He tries to hug her but she is stiffening and resisting. He tries to explain what happened. He grabs a picture of their son, and when he sees his reflection staring back at him, he shatters the glass and tucks the photo inside his jacket. Sean tells Eve that he and Castor have different blood types. Then he leaves out the window. That night when Castor comes home to Eve, she seems to be more observant on her husband. While he sleeps, she gets a sample of his blood. She sneaks out and takes the sample to the lab. Sean was waiting at the lab, and now both of them know they have to stop Castor. Castor stops by the hospital looking for Sean and Eve. He finds Eve but no one else. The next day, there is a funeral for Victor. Castor and Eve are attending the ceremony, while Sean sneaks into the church. A pew boy finds Castor and hands him a photo of Sean's deceased son. Castor looks at the photo and crumples it up. After the ceremony, the church clears out while Sean and Castor are ready for the final fight. Castor is threatening Eve's life and Jamie's. Sean wants to keep them out of it. Then Sasha steps in with her gun. She throws an extra one to Sean. Castor tries to correct her but she doesn't believe him. Shots are fired from every direction. On the floor, Sasha is on top of Sean. She asks him to take care of Adam before she dies. Castor tries to run and the chase continues. When Castor grabs Jamie hostage, she realizes that he is not her father. She pulls out her knife and stabs Castor in the leg. Castor continues to break away. He finds a boat and then soon so does Sean. The chase continues on the water. Sean leaps off of his boat and onto Castor's boat. Then the boat crashes, throwing both of them off into the sand. Castor manages to slice Sean's stomach with a shard of glass. Sean grabs a dart gun and the two are caught in a corner. Sean tries to pull the trigger but nothing happens. Castor takes the shard and begins cutting into his face to leave something for Sean to remember. The dart fires into Castor and Sean watches him wriggles in agony before dying. When the police arrive, Sean is stunned to hear that they already know from his wife that he may look like Castor Troy but actually he is Sean Archer. The surgery is scheduled to switch the faces back. Eve waits for Sean at home. When the door opens, Sean Archer looks exactly the way he should. He smiles warmly at his family and politely asks if they can do one thing for him. He calls someone outside and then they see little Adam. He wants to know if Adam can live with them and be a part of their family. The family shares a warm hug and welcomes Adam to his new home. Movie trivia. Do you know that originally, Nicolas Cage turned down the role of Castor Troy, citing a lack of interest in playing a villain? However, once he was told that he would actually be playing the hero for a majority of the film, he quickly signed on. This movie gets the movie rating of 7.3 from IMDb, Tomatometer rating of 92 and audience score of 82 from Rotten Tomatoes. Thank you for watching and be sure to hit like, subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments section, and hit the notification bell for the new movie spoiler video every week.